All right, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go back to Blackboard. I'm just going to show you where I'm holding these, because these the information I'm going to be showing you right now. So the first file I'm going to be talking about this morning is going to be under the assignments tab on Blackboard. And again, you should be downloading these yourself. Kind of don't just read them today, kind of come back to it as you're looking at them. So essay number 1, I have the assignment sheet in a Microsoft Word file and PDF. So you can, if your computer doesn't like Microsoft Word for whatever reason, there's a PDF there for you to download, so you can look at that. So that's what I'm going to look at first. Then most of what I look at is going to be under the in-class readings and activities tab. We're going to do a in-class writing later on. So I'm going to talk about some of the literary terms. So the reading for today, the textbook had a lot of literary terms which are relevant for the essay that you're going to be writing. So I'll talk about them more, and then eventually we'll read an example essay, and then we will talk about that in the in-class writing. So that's kind of the general breakdown. And some things might take longer than others. It just depends. So I'm going to talk about the essay number 1 assignment sheet first. And again, you can download that yourself under the assignments tab on Blackboard. So there, as I said on Monday, there are 3 essays, 3 major essays. The first 2 are going to be shorter. Okay, so they're going to be about 750 words, around 2.5, 3 pages, maybe a little bit more. And the 750 words is the minimum. So it could be a little bit longer if you want it to be, but it shouldn't be like 500 words or anything. It should be approximately 750 words in double spaced. Everything should be double spaced. For every paper, we'll be doing a day where there's individual pre-planned conferences between you and me, not anybody else. And there will be a day where we do peer review. The dates for that are up here at the top of the assignment sheet. But to show you kind of what that's going to break down, what I'm looking at right now is the schedule. That schedule is at the bottom of the syllabus, which you can also download yourself. So, for example, today, I'm going to kind of do exactly what it says on here. Introduce essay number 1, read example essay number 1, and then there's complex book entries for both tomorrow and Monday, and those are the 2 short stories that are going to be really important, because you're going to choose one of them and write about it for your first essay. So those 2 short stories that we're reading for tomorrow and Monday are going to be extremely important. The other 2 papers, essay 2 and 3, you'll have kind of more freedom to choose what you want to write about, because we're at the start of the class, we're getting our feet wet still. I'm gonna stick with these 2 short stories. The one-on-one conferences will be Thursday, June 17th. So that's not, as I said before, this 1 week of classes is like 2 weeks of a normal 16-week class. So that would be like a month in the semester versus 2 weeks. So next Thursday is when we're doing one-on-one conferences. So what I would like everybody to do is Wednesday night by 11:59 p.m. is to email me your rough draft, because what I have to do is I have to comment on them. I have to give you feedback. I have to prepare for that. So I have to wake up in the morning, especially early, and comment on everybody's paper to prepare. I'm not going to just show up and say, well, it looks good. I'm going to give you specific feedback. So this is a rough draft. That means it doesn't have to be finished yet. It doesn't have to be extremely polished if you don't want it to be, but you should be emailing me some writing. I'm a visual person. I like to see versus hear. So even if you only have, even if you're still struggling with your thesis or whatever it might be, wherever you are, email it to me by Wednesday, June 16th, and I can then give you feedback. And then peer review will be the following Monday. So we'll do one-on-one conferences that Thursday, and then you'll have a few days to take my feedback from our conferences and be revising, because everything is about revising and editing. And then on Sunday night, June 20th, you'll email me again your peer review draft. And again, the conferences draft and the peer review draft are both over email. I think that's very important to point out. So that's email me for peer review by 11:59 p.m. because again, in the morning, I have to put that together. I have to know how many essays I'm going to have to be put together. I have to put them in groups. I have always kind of had problems with here I have a group of 4, and then somebody else emails me their paper, and then I have a group of 5. I think groups of 4 are already too much. Groups of 5 are impossible. In an hour and 15 minutes, how can anybody read that many papers? It's just impossible. So I like to stick with groups of 3. If I absolutely have to, I'll do a group of 4. But I never will do a group of 5. So if you email me, 10 minutes before class, oh, here's my paper, I might not have a group to put you in, right? So it might not be feasible. So please email me. That's going to be Sunday night, June 20th. So you have between Thursday, our conferences, and Sunday night to email me your next draft, which will be your peer review draft. Then ideally, have a great peer review, get specific feedback on your paper, and then we'll do the peer review that Monday, the 21st. And the final draft of the paper will be due Monday, June 21st by 11:59 p.m. The difference between the drafts, so you'll email me the conference drafts, so the one-on-one conference drafts, and the peer review drafts, but you'll submit the final draft to Blackboard. And so because the reason why you don't want to submit the draft to Blackboard is you're still drafting, you're not finished yet. Okay, so only the final draft on June 21st at night will be submitted to Blackboard. And I have that under the assignments tab. And so just where I showed you where the links were for these assignment sheets, that link is right here, essay number 1. You click on that. This is different than the Complete Book entries. The Complete Book entries, I said to copy and paste or write in the content box. For this one, you want to upload it to your computer. Okay, save it somewhere if you have a flash drive or something, and upload it to Blackboard. Okay, and that's going to be your essay number 1. And then that's the final that I will be officially grading. But the conference draft and the peer review draft are for feedback to help you revise, and the final draft is what I will officially grade. Does anybody have any questions about the schedule? I'm going to talk about what the assignment is, but I want to make sure the schedule made sense. Okay, and again, I have the exact same dates up at the top of the assignment sheet and on the schedule too. So the assignment, okay, so as I said on Monday, these essays are going to be each focus on a specific focus of literature. So essay number 1 is going to be short stories. Essay number 2 is going to be like drama or plays, and essay number 3 is going to be poetry. So essay number 1, first we're starting with short stories or fiction. So they're all going to be, I think, fiction in some way, but this is going to be more short stories. So short stories are not lengthy like novels. Okay, they can be they could be 10 pages, they could be 50 pages, but they're never novel length. They're a lot shorter. Ours aren't going to be anywhere near 50 pages. So for essay number 1, you're going to analyze a short story. Only choose one. You should choose between Friday Black and Recitative. Those are the 2 we're going to be reading over the next few class periods. You should choose one. And you will then analyze your story and focus on a specific theme. Okay, so it could be family, marriage, death, love, class, something like that. And discuss how the author uses one or more of the following focuses. Now, these are all focuses that were assigned to read for today. Okay, so all of these page numbers you were assigned to read for today, so you would understand the assignment and going in, you understand these points of these terms going into reading the next 2 essays, the next 2 short stories, which you will then need to analyze for your essay. So everything has a purpose. All the class periods are meant to build into each other and to help you. So ideally, you're not bombarded with information that you don't understand. Okay, so if you haven't been able to read these, definitely do read them. I'm going to talk about them a little bit today still. If you're maybe confused, if you don't understand one of the terms, I'll talk about them a little bit. But I would suggest, this isn't a huge paper, I would suggest maybe choosing one of these focuses and analyzing some aspect of it in relation to the story. So if you're interested in maybe one specific character, okay, analyze that specific character for the whole paper. If you're interested in point of view or setting, analyze that for the whole paper. I say one or more because they do interconnect, okay? So the character, it impacts the plot, and the setting also impacts maybe what the character might do. And so they all kind of connect together in a lot of ways. We think about them separately to understand them, but they all really connect. So if you do choose more than one, your thesis that you have needs to connect them. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about the 5-paragraph essay just through the example of complex book entry. And you don't want to write a 5-paragraph essay. Maybe some of you have heard of that before, I'm not sure, but you may have probably written them in high school. But a 5-paragraph essay is going to be, you're going to have like an introduction, 3 body paragraphs. So body paragraph 1, 2, 3, and then your conclusion. And it lists. So every body paragraph lists something. So paragraph 1, I'm going to talk about strawberries, paragraph 2, blueberries, and paragraph 3, cantaloupe. And that's really basic and simplistic and probably not what anybody would write in a college class, but that's a general idea. Every different paragraph talks about something different. In the case of our paper, a 5-paragraph essay would be 1 paragraph about plot, 1 paragraph about character, and another paragraph about setting. Don't want to do that, because what that does is you're only able to analyze one focus in 1 paragraph, and that really isn't a lot of room to expand on your ideas. So if you're able to connect ideas, so not just saying the plot and character, but how does the character connect the plot or impact the plot in some way, then you can analyze more than 1. But I would say for a 750-word paper, don't really analyze more than 2. I would say that if it's a longer paper, you would need more, because you want to think about the scope of your paper. How long is your paper? The longer the paper, the broader your thesis needs to be, because you need more room to support that idea. The shorter the paper, the more narrow your idea needs to be, because you're not going to have as much room to support that thesis. So if you're only focusing on character, don't focus on all the characters, maybe only focus on 1 or 2 characters. So you're gonna, for 750-word paper, gonna really need to narrow that in. But otherwise, you have to understand these terms, because you're gonna first figure out which short story you're interested in that you want to read. Do you want to analyze Black Friday, or do you want to analyze recitative? We got to read them first to figure that out. We're going to do that in the next few class periods. Then we're going to talk about them. So tomorrow, most of the class period will be dedicated to talking about Friday Black. If there's something you don't understand about that short story, if you're interested in talking about one of these points, one of these aspects, and maybe brainstorming for your paper, figuring out what that short story is about or some aspect of it, we can think about that tomorrow. On Monday, similar idea for recitative. And so breaking it down, brainstorming, okay? You will need to have a thesis, your main idea for your analysis of the story. Your thesis will be supported throughout the story. So one common mistake I'll see a lot of times with a lot of papers, not just this kind of paper, but a lot of papers, is that a thesis will be set up at the beginning and then it's quickly abandoned and then talked about something else. So for example, say somebody has a thesis about character and that's all set up in introduction and then leads into a thesis about character. But the second paragraph will all of a sudden randomly talk about point of view, and it will have nothing to do with the character or the thesis that it's set up. If you want your thesis to analyze something about the character from a short story, the entire essay should be about character and should support that thesis. Okay, so it all should be relevant. So when you're trying to write the rest of the paper, asking yourself, how is this information relevant to my thesis? How does it support that thesis? And then clearly explaining that to your audience. So I have an example here. So you could say, like, don't use this thesis because, well, we're not reading this short story, but it says, in the story of an hour, Kate Choplin uses symbolism to show Mrs. Mallard's loss of self within her marriage and her sense of freedom in her husband's death. So in that example, the writer would be talking about how symbolism impacts the story in some way. You don't have to talk about symbolism, you can talk about any of them, but you should be analyzing at least one of these aspects that you read about for today. Use evidence from the text. And so evidence would be what you're using to support. So the symbolism shows because, okay? And then you have a specific evidence. So those would be specific wording and lines. And then it is your job as a writer to clearly show how those words connect to your thesis. Don't just rely on that. So do not rely on like generalizations or paraphrases of the story. Provide specific evidence. And then you also should pull at least 3 quotes from your short story. Introduce your quotes. Don't just assume that your audience is going to understand what those quotes are and where they're from. Introduce them, explain what they are, explain how they support your thesis. And also, what's really important is don't have your entire paper quotes. Again, you want to have quotes as evidence to support your thesis, but your entire paper should just not be summary or quotations. So at least 75% of your paper should be your own words and thoughts. I want to see your own analysis and your own reasoning. I want to know what you have to say, because anybody can come in and just throw the same and summarize any short story. I want to know why that information is important to you. Why is this information interesting? Why are you including in the essay? So overall, develop a strong thesis around one of the aspects of the essay, analyze and ask questions, form that thesis. I should see you thinking critically, asking questions and whatnot. Provide evidence from the short story that supports your thesis. Provide clear reasoning to show how that evidence supports your thesis, and that reasoning is the why. So that the what is the quote. This is a quote from the short story. And then you would say this information, literally say this information supports my thesis, but you would then show how that information supports your thesis, and you would be your own words and ideas. That why this information matters, that's your reasoning. Okay. Employ a logical and effective organization structure. So your paragraph should build together, not just be a 5-paragraph essay. Again, if you have never written a paper that's not a 5-paragraph essay before, I'm hoping that I can help you throughout. I have been teaching again for like 7 years, so I've been doing this a long time, and I can help you with that. Have specific language, smooth prose, good diction, good grammar. Your reader should be able to understand what you're saying, and so that comes from editing, revising your language on a sentence structure level. Have an informative topic or a title. Don't just say essay number 1, but have a specific title that relates to your paper. Have a works cited page at the end. You should not be doing outside research for this paper. So your works cited page will only be the citation that you use for the short story. The good news is that you're citing that for your Common Pleas book entry tomorrow and Monday. So when I go to comment on and give you feedback on your Common Pleas book entry, even if you make a mistake, I will provide feedback. You should change, if you have an incorrect citation, change your citation and fix it before you submit your final draft of your essay. So you'll know what the citation is, and provide in-text citations as well throughout. And this wasn't originally this was part of my example. So that was a lot of information so far. Does anybody have any questions about what I just talked about? As I drink my water. Okay, so I don't see any questions, so I'm gonna turn off the recording here in a second, but as you're writing your paper, later today in this class period, we are going to be looking at example essay number 1 and literary terms, okay? And I also have some questions down here. So later on, if you come back to this recording, I'm not gonna have the entire class recorded, but look at these, what's the word I'm looking for? Materials, that's the word I'm looking for. Look at these materials as well. They're gonna help you out.